According to a US military spokesman, the United States and its so-called coalition partners have airdropped tons of weapons to militants fighting inside Syria. The US official has confirmed 50 tons of ammunition have been delivered to moderate militant groups, which Washington believe have leaders who were appropriately vetted by the United States and had been fighting to remove ISIL from northern Syria. 2 weeks earlier, Russia carried out scores of airstrikes, killing hundreds of terrorists fighting the Syrian government, and launched long-range cruise missiles from warships in the Caspian Sea. US officials say Russia has targeted US-backed militants and other extremist groups. The Obama administration cannot easily defend those it secretly armed, officials say. The CIA began its covert operation in 2013 to arm, fund and train terrorists to overthrow the Assad government. However, there seems little prospect of rescue for these CIA-backed militants. Should the US be trusted to deliver weapons in Syria? Is its aim to destabilise that country? And is the US more concerned with dealing with Syria or with fighting Russia? These are the simple questions we sought to answer. Now, the United States and its so-called coalition partners have delivered tons of ammunition to militants fighting in Syria. Why have they done this? That's the question we put to the American public.
I really don't know. For the terrorists, actually the United States should mind their business and stay out of other people's problems. We have our own problems right here, which they can't even solve. We need new, young politicians at Washington, not these old, decrepit, wanting to steal money and put money in their pocket. Simple.
Because we want their oil. We want, mineral rights. Truthfully, we got control. We're the U.S., We're a world power. We need that, We got our reserve, but we want theirs first. We got to put ours on back. We got to survive first.
Politics. I don't know. I think what's happened around the world and what's happening, especially in parts, especially like Syria and everywhere else, war-torn countries, we do more good than bad sometimes and more bad than good. So it's just politics, man.
That's a really good question. I have no idea.
I don't know, honestly, but I don't think it's right. I don't think that's right. That's my opinion.
Anytime you see the U.S. giving out, because it's been repeated many times in history, especially with different presidents, I feel so they do things like that, like go into different countries and give militants weapons, is it's for their own agenda. It's not really for the welfare of the people. So I feel like, I think that's America in a whole, they're for themselves. They're for building themselves as a global dominance rather than helping people. So that's why I feel that.
I have no idea.
To support the rebel cause.
What is the expert view on Washington's reasons for dropping such vast quantities of weapons into Syria?
When this conflict began as part of the Arab Spring, the West felt that it was simply impossible to get involved in yet another country after Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya and so on. The public opinion was against any involvement by Western troops on the ground. However, America was willing to provide arms to the so-called moderate opposition in the hope that with support from the West they would be able to overcome the Assad regime.
The United States have dropped weapons inside Syria simply because that they want to arm and supply different militant groups who are opposed to the Syrian government in order to depose of the Syrian government. They want to change the status quo, they want power in the region, and they've been doing that now for more than 4 years, and they want to continue to do that. They want the cycle of violence to continue. They want to tear Syria apart into different little countries. They don't want a sovereign independent nation in their way. They want to advance their agenda, which is to become more powerful. They also want those particular groups who they are arming to be dependent on America's help, so that in the future they will have more say in any negotiations or any settlements. And also one other important point is that by arming these different militant groups, they are prolonging the war. They want to create more divisions and more violence amongst both the people from who are opposed to the Syrian government and people who are with the Syrian government. They want there to be constant warfare and in order to expand their hegemony in the region.
We know that ISIL terrorists have long been using US weapons. Should the US be trusted when delivering weapons to Syria? We asked the American public.
No, no, they should not. I don't think the US should be trusted into that.
No.
Absolutely not. I think the people that we supply and that we demand, we also have to keep in focus what it is that we're trying to do, and us giving them, instead of giving them weapons, why not try and build homes instead of, you know, blowing a bunch of stuff up? Doesn't make any sense, but like I said, again, it's politics.
No. You know, actually, we trained a lot of people, you know, a lot like Saddam Hussein, and, you know, and trained them to do what they did. We know what everybody does. We constantly watch everybody, and we know what they do, but we let them go. You know, because some of them, their families are so rich and got oil and mineral rights, and we just let them do what they want. You know, we don't care because we need it so bad. You know, like our reserve, we want theirs.
Not really. Me personally, I don't really trust the U.S. anyway. Especially in aspects like that. Because even you see on the news, you know, they have a lot of propaganda against ISIS in the Middle East and stuff like that, and affairs dealing with that. But they're the same ones that they're funding these people and they're giving them these weapons to do that. So it's kind of like, it's all propaganda. I feel like it's all a facade just to keep us distracted when they're really the ones helping that. And I think it's both the government there and here are just, they're, like I said, they're just for themselves. Like, so.
No.
Why not?
Because the truth is not often told about what weapons are being delivered to who.
Definitely not. I believe that the United States, like I said, that they will use any excuse that they can to get into business that isn't theirs in the first place. And I do believe that they are giving weapons and they are helping ways to fund, you know, these terror groups that they're so supposedly against. And I also think that the United States itself is not really as much of an alliance or like as, you know, this like country of opportunity as it portrays. Because even if it makes opportunities here, it definitely doesn't when it comes down to foreign policy within other countries.
Probably not.
Why?
Well, if they've been used against them in the past, then they'll probably be used against them in the future.
Yeah.
Maybe they should just stay out of other people's business, but I know that it's complex at the same time.
To what extent can we trust the Americans when supplying weapons to Syrian-based terrorists? We asked our experts.
In terms of trust, of course, they rather hoped that the ISIL would not advance and capture these weapons. ISIL didn't even exist when this began. It's sprung up, very powerful, very effective, and by advancing fast has captured weapons that have been supplied to other organisations. It's also possible that American weapons have been provided directly to them by some of their supporters. In terms of trust, well, all the American can hope to do is keep providing what's needed to keep the moderates moving or retaining their position. If they didn't, then the whole American strategy would be undermined. So it isn't a question of being trusted so much as they want to see a particular outcome and will supply the weapons that are necessary.
I don't believe that the US should be entrusted with delivering weapons to Syria, as we have seen many times that those weapons have gone into the hands of terrorists such as ISIL. And I believe that the US should not be entrusted with doing anything in Syria. The US foreign policy is not interested in the well-being of the Syrian people. The US are not interested in the human rights in the region. They're interested in expanding their hegemony, and if that means that they should be arming terrorists, then so be it in their mind. But there will one day be a time that their tactic of arming and supporting these terrorists will backfire against the US, and they will live to regret it.
An American spokesman says the ammunition they have provided is for moderate militant groups whom the US has vetted. But why trust the US's judgment? The American public said this.
Well, I don't really have a reason to trust their judgment at all, honestly, because if they say that it's, it's modern and it's, for the advancement of the troops and everything like that, it's only advancement for like some sort of modern day imperialism in my opinion. And I don't think that they're really using it for good at all. And if anyone was to trust them, it would definitely be anyone who also wants in on anything that the US gets out of, like getting into these countries and terrorizing them.
Yeah, I guess I don't really have much reason to trust the government's judgment. Yeah.
There is no reason to trust. There is no reason to trust at all. None.
I don't trust it. Simple.
Well, a lot of our foreign actions, military actions, are vetted by non-military committees, so that's perhaps a reason to trust them, because some of the actions are vetted.
The U.S.'s judgment? Some people are ignorant, I mean, there's senators, congressmen, but we don't know what goes on. There's CIA, there's FBI, the CIA, if you really know what goes on in the world when it comes to weapons, CIA give it, they know what goes on. There's a little secret world. Weapons is the biggest thing in the world. It's the biggest moneymaker. Drugs is the next, and then it's artifacts, like Egyptian artifacts, ivory types like that. Goes like that in line, whatever.
I mean, if you can tell, I kind of don't. I don't. Yeah, I don't.
None.
Why don't you trust them?
Because I have no reasons to.
Do our experts trust the American approach to arming so-called moderate militants?
It's not a question of trust. The US has a strategic aim, which is to arm and support the militants. People who support that will trust it. People who oppose it would rather they did not.
I have no reason to trust what the US says about what's going on in Syria, and when they say they are just arming moderate militant groups, I think that's just a deception, because as we have seen, some of those groups, such as Jabhat al-Nusra, which have openly and publicly been affiliated with Al-Qaeda terrorist organization, and in fact, those same militant groups that the US are calling moderate are actually deemed to be a national security threat towards America. They would never be allowed into America. And they are only called moderate because those militant groups have their guns pointed towards the enemies of the United States. But if those very same militant groups have their guns pointed towards America's interests or Israel, then they will be automatically called terrorists under the US propaganda machine.
Unnamed American officials say Russia has targeted US-backed fighters. Is the US more concerned with stabilising Syria or fighting Russia? Here's what the public said.
Trying to get along with Russia, I believe. And Russia's not such a good friend of ours anyway. Putin is a little Napoleon complex with his little muscles and his little horse.
I'm not going to say we're more concerned about fighting with Russia. I'm going to say that, like I said before, we need to stabilize a lot of countries all around the world, and I think Syria is one of them.
We don't want to fight with Russia. We want what they got.
I think they're definitely more concerned about fighting Russia, especially there's a spiel about, Putin and Obama and stuff like that. I feel like it's deeper than just opposing views. I feel like they kind of want to be like the new Britain, the US, because they go to different countries and they have a base basically everywhere they go. So I feel it's more, again, they just want to fight somebody and, become a global dominance basically, yeah.
Probably neither.
What are they concerned with?
Just things that are not those two things.
Stabilizing Syria. Yeah, I don't think we're all that concerned with the interaction between the United States and Russia right now.
I think probably fighting Russia. Probably, yeah. Not stabilizing Syria.
they're more concerned with most likely fighting Russia, because as we all know, like Obama and Putin aren't necessarily the best of friends, and there isn't really anything we can do to necessarily rekindle the relationship with Russia, because there's already like so much like turmoil between the two parties that you can't really find a way to rekindle it. But at the same time, getting into Syria is also an objective, because there are resources or things in Syria that they can gain for their own benefit. So maybe the United States can get some sort of alliance with Russia if they both end up teaming up to get into Syria.
Oh, I don't know. That's a really complex question again, and I don't know if I can answer in a yes or no. I think, President Obama probably has really good intentions, but as we've seen, becoming involved in these Middle East crises can be very unpredictable and produce outcomes that are not anticipated. So, difficult question to answer.
Our experts had this to say about American intentions regarding fighting Russia versus stabilising Syria.
The US is extremely concerned not to fight Russia. There is no possible way in which anybody wants the Third World War here. And lines of communication, it is hoped, are being opened so that the Russians and Americans will deconflict, that there's no danger of them having an accidental contact or conflict. But, of course, America would prefer the Russians to be targeting the same targets as them rather than targeting the people they're trying to support. The Russians, however, are trying to support Assad. They are happy to oppose ISIL, or ISIS so-called, but they're equally happy to oppose anyone they regard as a terrorist, which is, by definition, anyone opposed to Assad. This could lead to dangerous conflict. The Russians and the Americans must inform each other who they're targeting and when to avoid entirely unplanned and unwanted conflict.
The US are very concerned about Russia's recent bombing in Syria. The Russians want to obviously try and gain the upper hand in the region. This is a tug of war between them and the United States. So the US is concerned that the Russians are targeting groups that they back openly, and they're also concerned that Russia are targeting ISIL, which they secretly back. When the United States say they are concerned, it's not because they are concerned about there being no peace. They're not concerned that the lives are being lost. They're concerned that they are losing ground in the region. The Russians are winning this proxy war. Just like in Ukraine, there was this tug of war between Russia and America. It's happening again in Syria. The Russians are trying their best to ensure that their ally stays in power. And at the moment, the US are very concerned because they are losing the war at the moment.
If the US's aim is to destabilise Assad's government, can it be trusted to achieve this? We invited the public to share their views.
I don't see why not.
We hope so. Don't know. We got to wait and see.
You can't trust the U.S. government. I'm going to tell you that now. But, there's so many, there's people working for us. There's people, there's so many people that want that money. There's so much illegal money out there. And then there's so many people that are good and they can't be corrupted and they want something, and they're working against each other, The thing is about the whole war in general, okay, say there's 1 million military out there in the world, soldiers. We got to put them to work. If there's no work, what's going to happen? Breadline. We got to start wars. I'm going to tell you that right now.
I'm kind of 50-50 on this question. Even though I do feel like America is very corrupt, but from opposed to a lot of countries, there is a lot of, it's very stable, and we have a lot of opportunity as people to become successful, unlike a lot of other countries that stifle certain groups of people so they won't get ahead, especially for women and stuff like that. But I feel like they could stabilize Syria, but I feel like it's not really for the welfare of the people. It's just to look good. Oh, we gave them this, we gave them that. They're more stable than they were. But it's to make them look good, not really for the welfare of the people. So yeah.
No.
Why not?
Because they don't even know how to take care of themselves.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure. That's a good question.
I sure hope so, because that's been our stated goal for a long time.
If they're in it for the long haul and if they're going to stick at it, then absolutely. But if they just want to go in and out and, you know, fly the victory flags, then no. They need to stick with it for the long haul, and the long haul is the long haul, not just, you know, a little bit of peace and then we'll move on.
No, because whenever the United States has an idea of stabilizing a country, it's never stabilized. Like, if you looked how in the past a lot of, you know, big Western countries have went into other countries in order to stabilize them or find a new way to help them, it's never helped. It's only beneficial for whoever is getting into the country, but it's never helpful for anyone that is in the countries that they're trying to get into. So in a sense, like, even though I can understand that, you know, they're trying to like do good, it's never really good. It's always bad.
We asked our experts to consider how much we ought to trust America's ability to stabilize Syria while destabilizing Assad and his administration.
The US are very keen to see a stable Syria, but unfortunately it's a highly unstable country. It is clear that it's going to be difficult to remove Assad, particularly as he gets more and more support from both Russia and Iran and Hezbollah, and indeed morale. The fact that there are people fighting with them has given a great fillip to the Assad regime. The US would still wish to overcome them, but it may well be that the US will see that Assad needs to be part of an interim solution, because Syria is now a very divided country, divided between the Kurds, the various so-called moderate groups, ISIL and Assad. How you unwind this, it's simply impossible to know. And it may be that Assad needs to retain control of the main western parts of Syria in order to stabilize the country. Ultimately, stability is what matters.
No, of course, the United States cannot be trusted in providing any stability in Syria. Their main agenda in the country is to prop up a regime that will be subservient to the interests of the United States government and not the interests of the Syrian people. If they fail to do that, then they will want to see chaos and destruction, wreak havoc in the country. And as we've seen as a great example in what happened in Iraq, they went into the country, they tried to prop up a regime. That didn't happen. They were militarily defeated and they were sent out of the country. And as a result, they left it in ruins and destruction. ISIL were then created. The violence still continues. They're still backing these terrorists to continue destroying the country and to destabilize the country and destabilize the region. That is their main agenda and that is their main goal. And if Americans were ever trusted in doing anything in Syria, then you should prepare for the worst.
By airdropping even more weapons into Syria, the US is further destabilizing that war-torn country, enabling Daesh to take advantage of that instability and grab control of larger areas. While others are also involved in this escalating conflict, the American intervention seems as selfish as it is cynical. Yet for all its might, so far, America's contribution has served only to provoke the situation and may well have turned a regional dispute into a global time bomb.